the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
What can I do for you, Barbara?
Hi, Father Simon. Yes, it's nice and warm today. My son and his family went to Mass. This was about a month ago, and their pastor was not there on Sunday. I'm not sure why, but they had a different priest do the Mass and homily. And the homily was a fire and brimstone kind of, and he said everyone in here is going to purgatory. Pretty upsetting. My oldest grandson, who just turned 13, was very upset by that, didn't understand. The other two were, not as upset as him, but what do you feel about that? I mean, my son was even bothered by it, and his wife.
Well, I think they should have been. He said probably everybody's going to purgatory. Purgatory. I believe in purgatory. I think purgatory is one of the most beautiful ideas. I'm gonna explain it. Maybe you can have your son, your grandson, listen to this part of the show. Purgatory is one of the most beautiful ideas in the Catholic faith. C.S. Lewis talks about it, believe it or not, in the Screwtape Letters, and he's not a Catholic. That what happens is when I die, I doubt that I'm going to be perfect. I've got a long way to go, and I don't think I've got that many years. I'm going to stand before the light and the love of God. And everything in me that isn't light and love is going to be burned away by the love of God. The love of God is a true fire. Love is truly a fire, but it's a fire of beauty and a fire of light and a fire even of joy. And purgatory is not a place of torment so much as a place of growth. Sometimes growth can be painful. That's true. But the point of it is that as we stand before God's light and love, and we're judged by God's light and love, we become more and more part of light and love. And, to me, the beautiful part of it is that when you die, if you die in the Lord, you don't stop growing. And that means even a person who dies and stands before the judgment seat of God and goes through this purging process. If you look at the Catechism, it's much more a process than a place. You go through this process, that means that if somebody went before you, he doesn't love you less now than he did. He loves you more because he's more capable of love, because he stands before God who is love. And these people who talk about the tortures of purgatory, well, growth can be painful, but there are two things in purgatory. There's hope and there's joy. And then there's the third thing. There is love, true love. I think that there are a lot of mystics who talk about purgatory in that sense. So I think that priest had no right to say there might have been some exceptional saints. I had a dear friend, he was a saint, no doubt about it. I mean, I refused to canonize him at his funeral, but I think he was a saint. Ran a soup kitchen, soup kitchen director for 40 years, and didn't want to do it, but he knew the Lord wanted him to do it. He went through a true dark night of the soul. He could not help but think about his sins, the sins of his youth. And he snapped out of it the day before he died. But I think that God was allowing him to be purged, which is what the purgatory comes from the word to purge, purged of all of the to have real repentance for all of his sins. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if he did not go to purgatory at all. That God, because of his exceptional virtue, might have given him that blessing. So for me to say, well, he's clearly in purgatory, I wouldn't have said that because I don't know it. Fact is, in his case, I doubt it. To have said you're all going to purgatory, I don't know. I don't think he had the right to say that. But I think purgatory is a beautiful thing. I'd rather aspire to go straight to heaven, but we used to think of purgatory as hell's back porch. What it really is heaven's front porch. And I think it's the same thing as judgment. Does that help a little?
Yes, it helps very much. I've done a little bit of, I'm a cradle Catholic. My son is too. They were all my children were brought up, baptized, all of that, but there was never all that much talk about purgatory. But I remember reading something about Padre Pio. One of the things, I guess, he had a vision of purgatory and had said it was so horrific, and the fires, and I never forgot about that. I hope I misread it. I haven't looked it up again because I don't want to read that. And I believe the fires is a fire for God.
Yeah. It's the sufferings of purgatory. I think the Catechism says are in no way to be compared with the punishments of hell. But the longing to be completely in God's presence, I'm sure that is a suffering. But again, the last chapter of the Screw Tape Letters speaks so beautifully about purgatory, and I would encourage you to read that too. That I don't know, I haven't been there, but I think there are beautiful things about the judgment and difficult things. I think purgatory and judgment are really the same thing. And people I know who've died and lived to tell about it say they experience all the pain they caused. That's interesting, because that makes sense, and that's going to be not so nice. But on the other hand, to know that I'm being drawn into the love of God, that will be nice. There's both and I think that we need to take purgatory very seriously and to pray for the souls in purgatory. That's something that's much neglected now, and I think that's a very important thing. But to understand that joy, hope, and love are not extinguished by judgment. So I hope that helps a little.
That was the Best of the Week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the Best of the Week is on the Relevant Radio app. Free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.